by the bullet from Kenneth Walker's gun or, quote, friendly fire. Attorney Ben Crump said this of the Attorney General, an African-American name, I forgot his name. Did he present any evidence on Breonna Taylor's behalf? Or did he make a unilateral decision to put his thumb on the scale of justice to help try to exonerate and justify the killing of Breonna Taylor? It's like they charged the police officers for bullets that missed Black bodies, but not charging the police for shooting bullets into Black bodies. Taylor's aunt, on behalf of the mother who's too distraught to talk, read a statement from Breonna's mother. The statement said, "Know this, I am an angry Black woman, angry because our Black women keep dying at the hands of police officers." Wow. So Norm, any thoughts, reactions about all of this?
I have so much, Doc.
Okay. Okay.
There is just so much amiss in this case. The way that the district attorney has handled this case, and I just like to make a little small statement. And one of my concerns with cases that are as unfortunate as the actions that led to Breonna Taylor's death is that people become more emotional than rational when dealing with the issue. With the emotions, you deal with the result and seldom consider the causative actions that led to the results. And this is probably why my autobiography is shunned by police executives. I have a lot of questions. I have served many search warrants and many what they call body warrants or arrest warrants. I'd like to know, with Breonna Taylor's case, what was the type of warrant being served? Was it an arrest warrant or was it a search warrant? Number two, these are the questions that no one is asking. Since the police already knew where the suspect they were looking for was located,
Yes.
Why were they searching Miss Taylor's apartment?
They said he was in custody already.
Yes. And number three, serving any type of warrant after 12 a.m. and before 6 a.m. is highly unusual. Most civilians don't know that. What specific reason did the warrant indicate that showed exigent circumstances for the warrant to be served after midnight? That is crucial. There is evidence that the time of execution of the two warrants for the target of the investigation, who was not Miss Taylor, were changed to reflect both occurred at the same time. They were covering themselves.
Wait, say that again. Now, what was changed?
They changed the times that the warrants were executed. There were three warrants that were supposed to be executed that night. One was for Breonna Taylor's ex-boyfriend, and the other one was for Breonna Taylor's residence.
Oh.
And the warrant for, it appears, that the investigators have looked at, it appears that the warrant for the ex-boyfriend was served and he was arrested before the warrant was served on Miss Breonna Taylor's apartment.
Okay.
And what they did in the aftermath is they changed the times.
Oh my goodness.
On the warrants. But they have a statement from Breonna Taylor's ex-boyfriend who stated that he was sitting in the police car when he heard police officers at Breonna Taylor's apartment say that we have a shooting at this location. He was in the car, police car, and he heard this.
Wow.
So these are some of the facts that haven't, they're out there. I've got this information from the USA Today and the Atlanta, not Atlanta kind of, but the Kentucky newspaper. I can't think of the name of it right now. But there is just so much amiss. What time did the magistrate sign the warrant? What was the date that she signed the warrant? Did she sign it after business hours? that's a problem. And here we go to critical stuff, and I hope I'm not going on too long.
No, no.
A threat assessment was made by the officers during the raid, which is what they're supposed to do. It was determined that in violation of their policy, they sent away the ambulance that was at that location.
Wow.
Now, they originally secured a no-knock warrant. When the threat assessment dictated they would not need an ambulance. So, no-knock warrants, civilians out there, listen to me. No-knock warrants are requested when there is a danger of either losing valuable evidence or there is a likely possibility the suspects are armed and will likely engage the officers with gunfire. The officers have already stated that they did not believe that Breonna Taylor had weapons. So what was the purpose of the no-knock warrant after midnight? You need to deal with that, because that makes the answers to that question would make the warrant invalid. And if the warrant is invalid, everything those officers did after that is illegal. Keep in mind that the state of Kentucky, their police forensic people could not determine whose shot killed Breonna Taylor. The federal government did an autopsy, and they were able, or did a ballistics test, and they were able to determine with certainty who fired the shot. So where does the cover-up begin?
So which officer are they saying fired?
Cosgrove.
Okay.
Cosgrove. But
Okay.
here is the troubling situation. The gentleman who was with Miss Breonna Taylor, who fired, he says, a warning shot.
Kenneth Walker, right?
Kenneth Walker. He fired a warning shot. No evidence of where that warning shot went. Now, the officer, what's his name? Hankinson. Red Hankinson.
Yes.
Firing indiscriminately everywhere. There is an extreme possibility that I believe that they're covering up the fact that Hankinson actually shot the police officer.
Yes.
And this is part of the cover.
Friendly fire, right?
Yes. This is part of I think that this is all part of a cover up. And here's an important point, and this to my civilians out there. When you execute a search warrant, let's forget the no-knock portion. You're executing a search warrant. You are banging on that door so loudly and yelling so loudly, people can hear you 2 blocks away. I'm telling you, because I've done this. And it seems as though there were 12 witnesses who said they didn't hear anything.
Right.
But the one witness who said he did hear something is evidence that he changed his story after the 3rd time.
So at first he said he didn't, and then he changed it to say he did. Wow.
Yes. And the other part to this is he has said he heard them say, "It's the cops." Totally not the way you serve a warrant. Totally not what you would say.
What would you normally say? I mean,
you would say, "Police, search warrant. Police, search warrant." And you would be yelling loudly and pounding on the door so that anyone in that apartment building would have heard it. Anyone on that floor would have heard it. And people, I mean, they had to hear the breach of the door, but it sounds to me consistent that if they did not announce themselves and broke in the door, the gentleman in the house, Mr. Walker, he was justified in firing a warning shot or being terrified and shooting. And you have 32 bullets total that were fired that evening. 32 bullets. And Breonna Taylor was hit with 6. For the public who do not understand, and I've said this before, when you are hit with a .40 caliber bullet, you're down. You're not standing. It's not the cowboy movies where you see the guy get hit with a gun with a bullet, and he's standing there and he's trying to shoot back, or he's looking at you and waving back and forth. The reason police officers got the 40 caliber round is because they wanted something with knockdown power.
Wow.
So you're firing 32 shots. She got hit with 6. She was on her way down the first shot. And here is my other complaint. Were they the gang who couldn't shoot straight? Because Kenneth Walker never got shot. He was the one who fired his gun. He was never hit by bullets. So was Kevin.
What do you make of that? What do you make of that?
Well, 2 things had to happen. Either he was using Breonna Taylor as a shield, and no one has said that, or they were just firing indiscriminately. And from what they said, she died in the hallway. So the hallway couldn't have been but so wide going into an apartment. How wide could it be? This is all very suspicious. And based on my experience as a police officer and my background in doing executing search warrants, there is a lot amiss here. There's a lot amiss.
I have a question, because they said they were plain clothes. Do you normally serve warrant in plain clothes?
Well, if it was a plain, that was the other problem. The officers who initiated the warrant were not there. Whenever you serve a search warrant, uniformed officers have to be present and visible. Because if you're knocking on the door and yelling police, and they see a bunch of guys out there in raggedy clothes or civilian clothes, you look just like guys on the street.
Exactly.
So from the beginning, it was handled wrong. To me, the warrant is suspect. The execution of the warrant is suspect. No one is asking that question. And I think it's because you don't have any police professionals who are involved in this. You have, even with lawyers, you have emotional lawyers, you have emotional activists, and that was my point at the beginning. Nobody is sitting down and thinking this through. And when you think it through, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a guy who was a cop, but I can point out so many things that are wrong with this, and the district attorney should have known that. The district attorney should have known that. He is complicit in this cover-up, and I think that it is politically motivated.
Well, you know, he spoke at the RNC as a Trump supporter.
Yes.
And Mitch McConnell is his mentor.
Yes. And so I think that there is political pressure that's being put on him from the White House. This is why yesterday he said he was going to release the transcripts today, but they have not been released.
Today, right? He asked for a delay, for a week delay. He asked for, yeah.
He got a call from Washington. Trust me. Trust me. I'm sorry to say, this stinks. You remember that the city paid Miss Taylor's family a settlement of $12 million before the grand jury verdict even came in. So they knew exactly what was going to happen before it happened.
Wow.
They're all in it. They're all in it. And this $12 million was paid to buy them off, to silence them. It obviously did not work, but nobody pays a civil settlement of $12 million that soon. It is extremely suspect.
Wow.
And we need to look at all of this. I think that the tentacles of this will go all the way to Washington, D.C. And
so who would look into it above the Attorney General?
Well, right now, the Attorney General.
But there's no one above him that could look into it, like the federal government?
Well, the federal government is already investigating it for civil rights violations.
Okay.
they're already investigating the case.
Mm.
There is a lot amiss here. There is a lot amiss. And I cannot see any law enforcement agency going in there and making the findings that the state of Kentucky made in this incident.
Mhm. There
It,
was another question I had in terms of, I read somewhere that when you serve that kind of warrant, a no knock, it's supposed to be a SWAT team. Is it normally supposed to be a SWAT team?
uh,
What is that?
I would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
I would say yes, based on my experience. But again, and I like to emphasize this was served after 12 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be looked at.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be looked at.
Well, we know they passed a law June 11th in Louisville called Breonna's Law, and the new law outlaws no knock warrants and requires body cameras be turned on before and after every search. They passed that in June 11th.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
they knew that the body cams were present. Those body cams weren't turned on purpose. They knew, and this is, I'm going to emphasize this again.
Mm-hmm.
After 12 a.m., what was the reason for serving that warrant?
Mm-hmm.
Let's start there. That question needs to be answered.
Mm-hmm.
There were supposed to be 3 warrants that were going to be served. They served 2.
The one you said was to the boyfriend. Who was the other
The
one?
ex-boyfriend.
Or
Well,
Jamarcus Glover is his name, right?
correct,
So,
yeah.
right.
His warrant was served.
Okay.
There was another warrant for, there was supposed to be some kind of narcotics network in that neighborhood. And the other one, the third warrant was not served. It was taken out, but it was not served. And it could very well have been because of all the brouhaha over the Breonna Taylor incident. And I just think that I think that we're going in. They went in there willy-nilly, and they were reckless. And who directed this operation? There had to be a police supervisor who directed this operation. Who was he? Who was the police supervisor who signed that warrant? And the Judge Shaw, I believe her name is, or Magistrate Shaw, she is suspicious also. And again, we need to look at the warrant. And everybody's talking about the transcripts. We need to look at the warrant, the search warrant.
Now, a question, like they mentioned the warrant, that one of the reasons they got the no knock was because supposedly he was sending packages from or to that apartment, drug packages, and that supposedly that the post office had complied with it. And the post office said no, that they weren't involved in it. So they lied about the post office stating that she was receiving suspicious packages there.
Yeah, but that still doesn't justify a no-knock warrant.
Exactly. So what justifies a no-knock warrant? When do you issue one?
There has to be an extreme safety issue,
Mm-hmm.
or there's a possibility that a significant part of the evidence will be destroyed, or that people may in some way escape from the location. Mm-hmm. Those things you try to prevent. Mm-hmm. But usually the reason that you have a no-knock warrant is because of the possibility of imminent danger to the police officers executing the warrant. Mm-hmm. And that would be the reason where knocking on the door and announcing yourself may get someone shot. Someone may shoot through the door.
But they're supposed to be in police clothes, not plain clothes, you said.
Well, we've executed warrants. We executed warrants in our clothes. Basically, we had civilian clothes on, but we always wore jackets and hats that's clearly noted that we were police. Oh. The bright yellow writing on the hats, bright yellow writing on the jackets, and there was always a presence of a uniformed police car marked outside the residence, so that when you're announcing, people look through their window and they go, "Oh my God, it is the police." That's supposed to sort of force compliance before you start breaking down doors and things like that.
And they use some kind of a ram to,
Yes.
What is it that you use?
That's standard. It's a battering. It's called the battering ram.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a heavy metal. It's like a post with a handle on it. It's almost. It looks like a pommel horse almost, but it's metal.
Okay.
And it will usually, you hit a door right, it will open. It will open most doors in 1 or 2 hits.
Wow. You know, some years back here in Atlanta, there was a woman, Catherine Johnson. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yes.
91-year-old woman, or
yes.
But she, no, it was 91 bullets that hit her. I forgot her age. She was elderly, but it was, I think, that's like 91 bullets.
Yes.
It was a supposed drug raid. So I don't know. Do they do no knock warrants here in Atlanta now? After that, I'm not sure what the status is.
I'm not sure. I don't think so because of the controversy over Miss Johnson. But don't take that as gospel from me. But to get a no-knock warrant signed, it is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult to get a no-knock warrant signed. And you really have to show, and the word that they use is exigent circumstances for a no-knock warrant and to serve a warrant after midnight. Wow. Those warrants they're in a special class. And obviously I don't see any evidence of that, not in the news reporting or even in the district attorney's presentation. And these were the questions that I was asking while listening to his presentation. I listened to the whole presentation. And these things were never brought out by him. In addition to his not ever mentioning the name of Breonna Taylor.
Exactly. So it has come out that one juror did file a court hearings right to release the proceedings because and then the attorney general has admitted that there was no evidence presented about charging any of the other officers with homicides. That was never ever presented.
Yeah, well, this is going to be the unveiling. This is going to be opening that closed door, because you had one juror with the integrity to speak up and obtain a lawyer to maintain their anonymity, but saying the public is not hearing the whole story, because we've been vilifying the grand jury, but it was the district attorneys who actually, it's called subornation of justice. That's the legal title. But he was actually actively involved in a cover-up, and that's a crime. So who would be the person or the body to come in and investigate that? That would be the Department of Justice. So that's, what's his name? Daniel. No, not the attorney, but the Department of Justice. Would it be, the Attorney General? You mean Attorney Barr? Oh my gosh. Right, yeah. Would he be the one that would be the one to? Yeah, that's. Wow. I mean, that's disheartening. That's disheartening. But there is a department, a division under that I had to deal with personally, called the Color of Law Unit. The Color of Law? Yes, that's. And in short, this is a division of the Justice Department that deals with crimes committed or offenses committed by police officers under the color of their office. In other words, they're misusing their power to abuse citizens. And I'm pretty sure that would be the unit doing the initial investigation. And what happens to that? We can only pray that justice will be served, but we know right now that there is heavy, heavy political involvement in this case. And it's going to be years before this is resolved. So hopefully, like with the new administration in November, then he would appoint his own attorney general and all of that, or how does that work? Yeah, he would. Okay. Yeah. Yes. that's another thing. People like, I'm getting over the subject a little bit, but people like Barr were put into office, and these new judges that he's appointed, and the ones that they're trying to get through to be appointed into the Supreme Court. The whole purpose of that is to protect the president. It's not, has nothing to do with justice for our citizens. It's all about putting people in place who are beholden to the president, who he can depend on when he gets in a fix. And, you know, I don't know how strong-willed Mr. Cameron, I think that's his name is, from Kentucky. I don't know how strong-willed he is, but when he feels the pressure coming from the federal government, I wonder if he is going to own up to all that he has done and all that he has, all of the people who have contacted him in reference to this case, because now it's bigger than Breonna Taylor. It's bigger than Breonna Taylor, because this goes against the entire fabric of justice in our country. Not to mention just us. I'm sorry to say, I'm sorry, but you know, there are too many people in this country in positions of power who look at us as less than human. Still, which is why a president of the United States can stand up and on public television and say to a white supremacist organization, stand back and stand by.
Exactly. And then today when they asked him about, he still refused to disavow that.
Yeah. But this is all incorporated with what's going on with Breonna Taylor, and having served as a police officer for over 25 years and 30 years in law enforcement, that you have to be open-minded enough to believe that there are racially prejudiced police officers and police commanders and even government leaders out there who do not have our best interests at hand. This is not all of them. And I get criticized because people think I'm talking about all Caucasian police officers, and I am not. I am definitely not. I want to make that clear. I made that statement. I tried to make that clear on one of your earlier programs where I was a guest, and one of my Caucasian Facebook friends listened to the program and said, "You were talking about me on her program."
With the shoe fits. Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was very much offended.
Oh, really?
But as you said, if the shoe fits, wear it. I'm not so sure. A lot of people are guilty of racial ignorance as opposed to just being racially prejudiced. I had a gentleman contact me on Facebook, Caucasian, yesterday, and his statement was he's been white for how many ever years he is, and he's never seen a white supremacist. Oh, you saw that?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
And I like your response. Do you like to say what your response was? Yeah.
Well, basically, I began by saying, first of all, you need to walk in my shoes.
Exactly.
But the other point, how can you be so ignorant that you've never heard of the KKK, the White Citizens Council, and people like that? And you should be more intelligent enough than to jump on any social media and come in with such supercilious remarks about you've never seen a white supremacist. Well, maybe you haven't in your little, I call them Shangri-La. In your little Shangri-La, perhaps you haven't. But well, you know what? Stay in your Shangri-La and have a good day. But it exists. And
is this guy an officer? Is he an officer, this guy?
No, he's not.
Okay.
No, he's not. I believe he's a radio host on he has his own radio show somewhere in Pennsylvania. But the Breonna Taylor case amplifies all of this. All of this is involved. The way that it was handled, there are only white officers involved in this. And again, I'm not indicting, this is not an indictment, but we see this over and over and over. And the racial insensitivity is blatant. And the whole process of serving this warrant, folks, I'm telling you, and you got to stop being emotional and deal with the facts. It's not proper to serve a search warrant after 12 a.m. I don't care where you go in this United States. I don't care where you go.
So
you need to
what would be the justification to serve one that time? What would be the justification?
Well, it would be that whatever operation that you're trying to stop or curtail takes place during that time. An example would be there's going to be a big drug drop at this location at 12 o'clock at night.
Okay.
And we want to get there, and the people who are going to distribute the drugs will be out of there by 1 o'clock to take them wherever they're going to go. And you have cogent information, persuasive information, good verifiable information that this is true. And you would present that to a judge. And the judge would look at that and they would question you about it. And they would want to look at your evidence that shows that this is necessary. And once they see that evidence, then they would sign the warrant. I can tell you that from my experience, that this is rare. This is rare. This is so rare because there's a danger in this, because you're waking up people. It's a possibility that you're waking up innocent people at night. And the first thing that you're going to do is your head's clouded. You're going to protect yourself. I can recall an incident where when I was a police officer, we had a call of a burglary in progress, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. And we got there to the residence, and the door was open. And it was, of course, pitch black at night. And what had happened is a neighbor heard someone breaking into this house. When we entered the house, and I was one of the first officers, because we think that there's a burglar in the house.
Do you have a bulletproof shield on?
No, we didn't have bulletproof stuff in those days.
Okay.
I'm walking up the steps in a dark house with my flashlight.
Wow.
And I look in one room and it's a little boy sleeping. So I go past that room. And the next room I go to, there are two people sleeping in the bed. So the first thing I did was I announced to police, shined my light directly in the man's eyes, because he was the first to wake up.
Okay.
And when he woke up, he reached for the drawer. And I yelled again, police officers, police officers. And when I did, he came to his senses, and he had a 44 Magnum in his drawer that he was reaching for. But what I'm saying, and this, bringing it to Breonna Taylor, this is why you don't execute search warrants at nighttime. Because
people are asleep and they're disoriented when they wake up. Yeah.
And your first reaction is protection. Is to protect yourself. That's your first reaction. So, and that's in case, and the reason that you do that, you're certain that what you believe is true is to be true when you take out that warrant. But it could very well be that there's an error made. And so the search warrants are made to prevent liability in the case of error. If you serve a search warrant, you break in there and you find nothing, which happens often, no harm done. I mean, the harm is done to the door. You break down the door, well, you pay for the door to get the door fixed. But this execution of a search warrant with Breonna Taylor after midnight, I don't know why the lawyers aren't talking about that. The so-called activists who are running around stimulating people are not talking about this. They're running on emotion, and these are the times where you have to stand back, look at the situation, and ask the critical questions. Deal with the issue. The result is that Breonna is dead. She's never coming back. But we need to find out, why did this happen? How do we prevent it? Especially happening again, because for certainty it's going to happen again, and it's going to happen again more than likely to a person of color.
Exactly. We know, by the way, they didn't find any drugs in the apartment, of
Correct.
course. No drugs.
Correct.
The boyfriend was charged with attempted murder of a police officer.
They dropped the charges.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
They dropped the charges, but he's now suing.
Oh,
He's now suing the city.
he is. Now, I'm not sure if it was the ex-boyfriend or him, where they were trying to get them to implicate Breonna. Was it the ex or him? Someone they were trying to get to implicate Breonna.
Well, at some point, the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend, and Breonna were exceptionally close, but they had parted company months ago.
Right.
But Breonna still kept ties, like they had phone conversations back and forth, but they weren't really seeing each other. So, but I assume that there must have been some sort of animosity there towards the new boyfriend, because he said the reason, when he heard all the banging at the door, he thought it was the ex-boyfriend coming in.
Exactly. Yes.
So I think that that's a part of the story that needs to be looked at. But that's again, you're talking about the little people again. We need to talk about what caused this to take place. And by my looking at it from here in Georgia, the reasoning for that warrant, it is suspicious. It's suspicious. To me, it looks as if they manufactured a lie, because the postal inspectors denied they said anything to these people. So they manufactured a lie. And that makes them, whoever took out that warrant, that makes them criminally liable. This is going to go to, this is going to go bigger than just the 3 officers that we're talking about. This is a total systemic breakdown. And again, we need to look at the warrant. We don't need to know informants' names, but we need to look at that search warrant. And then the magistrate, she needs to be questioned by federal authorities.
So I have a question. So the person who initiates the warrant, it doesn't have to be the same one to carry it out. So someone else can carry it out. It doesn't have to be the person who initiated it.
A search warrant, you need to be there.
The person who initiated it needs to be there.
They need to be there.
Okay.
The other part of that, if it's just an arrest warrant, and that's why it was one of my questions. If it was an arrest warrant, then they don't necessarily have to be there. But since they already knew where Mr. Glover was, because they had him in custody, there was no reason at all to execute that warrant.
Wow. So he's still in custody, do you know? Has he been charged, or what's?
I don't know. I don't know. Fortunately, he's still alive. But sadly, this goes beyond the 3 officers that everybody's talking about. This may even go into the command structure in that police department. And this is going to be a deep, intense investigation. And I think that the tentacles of this tragedy reach much further than people who are not educated in policing are able to visualize.
You're talking about the element of the racism. So I've been just reading different Facebook comments about the case, and it is amazing the tendency to blame the victim. Here's some of the comments. And this is you would see this repeated over and over, and these are by Caucasians. Here's one comment. And again, these are kind of things repeated. she was a criminal like her boyfriend. That's what she gets when you that's what you get when you have a criminal boyfriend. I mean, just blaming her over and over, you would see those kind of comments. It's amazing how the majority that I was seeing of white Americans had that kind of opinion. It was really kind of sad.
It's sad, but
scary.
it's the reality, and it goes back to something I said earlier. To a lot of people in this country, Black lives are cheap.
Exactly.
Black lives are cheap, and the idea is to shrug your shoulders and say, "So what?" And then the knee-jerk thing that these people say is, "We need to support our police," and we do. I just put on YouTube a recruitment video asking African American police officers, asking African American young men and women all over the country to consider a career in law enforcement, because we're in the midst of change here. There's a lot happening right now. And like in Atlanta, you have a lot of cops, police officers who are resigning. Nearly,
there were 400 down, 400 short.
Yes. So the vacancies are there for, and my statement in my video was standing with clenched fists on the sideline. Clenched fist solves nothing. Solves nothing. You can be a part of the change. That's why I joined the police department, because I wanted to help people in my community, because I grew up seeing brutal cops. I grew up seeing my people abused. In the mid to late 60s, there were so many incidents of police shootings that were suspicious, and that needed to stop, because just then, just as today, police were feared, but they weren't respected. So we need young people, some of whom are marching in the streets crying for change, to be a part of the change, to come on and take that step and get into law enforcement and be the beacon in your community that they're looking for right now. That's what we need. So no, I'm not anti-police. I'm not even anti-white police, because I also emphasize in that I want people of good character of all races to get involved in policing, but in particular, African American and minority group police officers. That's what we need in this country. We need diversity in our police departments, because when you have diversity, you have a difference in thinking. A difference in thinking. You don't think that there were times where and I know this is to be true, where there were incidents where I saved people from getting beaten just by being there.
Really? By
by my presence. One, of course, the incident I talk about in my book, the first incident that I write about, is seeing a Black woman transported in a police car in the trunk of a car. And now I physically went after the cop who did it, but I was pulled away from him. But had I not been there, there's no telling what other abuses would have been heaped upon that woman, who was intoxicated. Yes, she was. But no one deserves to be transported almost 3 miles in the trunk of a police car.
I mean, in the trunk.
In the trunk of a police car.
That's legal, or I mean.
No. And unfortunately, in those days, number one, she was intoxicated. I'm sure that when she went back to her family and told her story, and she was in her 40s, and when she went back and told her story to her family, nobody believed it. All they know is that she was picked up and she was drunk. But if she said, yeah, well, they had me in the back of the trunk of a police car, she probably had no idea that I came to her defense. She probably didn't see that part of it. But that's the sad thing that has happened year after year after year after year to our people. Some people believe that I know that this still goes on, and that there aren't enough people stepping up who are in the department, who are there, who witness it, instead of saying, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Did you see what he did? You need to get up there and and say something.
Mhm. When you talk about diversity, does that apply to women as well? What are your thoughts
Oh,
about
yes, absolutely.
women in policing?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Uh, I've seen uh, so much the importance of having uh, women on the job. There was a time when nationwide
Mhm.
there were no women involved in patrol duties, and that was a shame. And it took millions of dollars in civil suits
Mhm.
before that changed. What a waste of resources. What a waste. And now our young people today just accept it, and they don't realize the struggle that it took to get that.
Because women, they have to meet a certain like what weight, height, strength requirement or whatever.
Yeah, that was initial, yes. But now that's changed to your weight and height have to be proportional.
Mhm.
So some before when I joined the police department, the height requirement was you had to be at least 5'7" and
Mhm.
140 pounds.
Okay.
Uh, I was tall enough,
Mhm.
but you wouldn't tell it today, but I was I was just over the weight limit. I
Oh.
was just over. So I made it by a few pounds.
Mhm.
But for women, that was just not their physical stature. So after they changed the requirements and changed the laws, which were designed to keep women out,
Mhm.
uh,
Oh.
and that's why you'll see male cops now, 5'2", 5'3".
Oh.
Uh, yeah.
So there's no height requirement at this point?
Um,
5'2"?
there's no if you can sit in a car and feet can touch the pedal of a car, you're good to go. You're good to go.
There's a comment, someone was asking about attacks on police, and they saw the footage of an attack at a police department. The suspect was arrested and still alive. Did you?
Yes. Is that didn't he get away?
I
Is that the attack in the Los Angeles police station?
you just said a police precinct, so I'm not sure. I didn't
Yeah,
see it. So I don't know.
I saw that where he from what I saw on TV, he attacked a police officer. I believe he took his gun and shot him,
Oh.
uh, but he ran out the building.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that happened, and that's the thing. I am total. My heart breaks every time I hear of a police officer being killed in the line of duty. It's traumatic. I've personally have been in incidents where I had a gun pulled on me. In fact, within my last 2 months.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I serving a search warrant. And it took us forever to get in the house, and when I got in the house, the guy had a 22 rifle pointed right at me.
Mm.
Uh, to this day, I don't know why I didn't shoot the guy.
What happened? I mean, how did you, you know?
This was right out of a movie. He froze, and I don't know. Um, some of our listeners or watcher viewers, if they've ever been in combat, they know about people freezing.
Mm.
And he actually froze, and I was able to run up to him and actually hit him and grab the gun and get the rifle out of his hand.
Wow.
Um, Scary. I don't know whether I would do that today, but he was frozen in position even after I grabbed the gun. He was still standing in the same position.
Really?
Uh, yeah,
Wow.
he was, and they call that shock. It happens in combat a lot,
Mhm.
but it's a scary feeling when you look back on it after it's happened. When you think about what could have happened.
Right. Someone asked about the two officers that were in the SWAT car. They were ambushed and shot.
Yes,
I guess that
yes,
suspect got away.
yes, yes, yes. There's a huge reward out for the person who did that.
Mm.
And I remember something similar happening in my city of Philadelphia many years ago,
Mm.
and they still never caught the person who did it. And that was what, almost 50 years ago.
Mm.
Uh, it's it's sad. It's why we had, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, a police woman in New York City was sitting in her police vehicle, and someone walked up to her and fired through the window and killed her.
Wow, it was just her?
Hmm?
So she was by herself?
She was by herself.
So
Yes.
they don't always, you don't always go in like a pair? It's always,
no.
Really?
No.
Wow.
No.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, more often than not, officers are by themselves. I think
you were in situations like that by yourself?
Well, she was just on. I think she was on a special assignment, and she was alone in the car, and she was sitting, parked along the sidewalk in her car, and someone walked up to her and shot her and killed her.
But in this climate now, today, do they have that situation where you can be alone in your car?
I think it depends.
Okay.
Because in my career, when we had what we called the long hot summers years ago, then there was a great emphasis on every car being occupied by two people.
Okay.
And I think that that's what's going on in Los Angeles, and that's why you had two police officers in the car who were shot. Fortunately, they're still alive, but it's I've seen what happens to a police officer who is shot at, and the one officer, and I wrote about him in my book. He never recovered. He never recovered. He was mentally. They protected him for a few years, but mentally he was out of it.
Okay.
And I'm going back to Breonna Taylor. The gentleman, Mr. Kenneth Walker, who was in that room and was shot at 32 times.
Yes.
How do you think his mental facilities are right about now?
Wow. I can't even imagine.
How do you think his nights are?
Wow. Okay. Well, it looks like we're at the end of our show. It's been.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, an hour.
It seems like we're talking 15 minutes.
An hour. Right. So I don't know, we might continue this. We'll see, like in a couple of weeks, where things are.
Sure.
So we might continue this topic. But thank you so much for being on the show. You've been
Thank you for having me.
informative and very helpful. You've been listening to Mind Matters and WCEG Network, part of the Worldwide Empowerment Group. Good evening. Have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you very much. You too.
All right.
Clear.